I want to talk about a brand that I think is extremely underrated in the watch world. The brand is called Damasko, and this particular model is the DK22. For those who don't know, Damasko actually started its journey around 25 years ago, when they first developed their groundbreaking patent for hardenable stainless steel. Now around the year 2010, they actually developed their first in-house movement, and over the years, they've had further developments in the area of parts manufacture, ice hardening, mechanical clasp fitting, and the use of silicon springs to reduce wear and service. So Damasko seems to have amounted over 100 patents, utility models and registered designs over the last 25 years. I think that's pretty impressive. And honestly, these watches seem to be just getting better and better. Jam-packed full of useful goodies. And I say useful because when we look at watches today, whether it's on our screens or our laptops or our iPhones, they look great, or even in the shop front. But it's the things that you actually don't see that make these watches special, the things that actually work and designed for a specific purpose. For example, I can actually change the date on this watch anywhere around that dial. It doesn't matter if it's midnight, it doesn't matter if it's 6:30, it doesn't matter if the hands are below or above the 3 and 9, and that's a pretty cool feature. Because these watches are designed to stand up to the rigors of daily wear and tear and our particular lifestyle choices of today. And there's not many brands that do that, or do that well. Now I've spent about 4 weeks with this watch on the wrist, in travel, in work, in leisure, in play, and I want to share my thoughts and findings with this watch because I think you're going to be intrigued at the level of technology and what actually goes into these watches that you don't see. But it's there for a reason. Let's dive in. Now it's the stuff that you don't see, that you physically cannot see with your eyes, that makes a tool watch company a proper tool watch company. And that's what Damasko is. Because in the area of caliber manufacture, Damasko actually uses nanotechnology coatings which contribute to a lubricant-free escapement. And alongside the polycrystalline silicon springs, this actually offers excellent magnetic resistance and control of accuracy in temperature and pressure fluctuations. Now that might sound like some marketing jargon, but it's actually not, because what this brand, from what I can see looking in, what this brand has set out to achieve, they actually do it, and they do it extremely well. Based on specs, the way it's made me feel, the way the actual watch feels, and the way this watch has been so easy to get along with, it's one of those watches that I'm going to struggle to send back. It's not perfect, there are some little niggles that I will share with you guys, but overall, a really impressive package. Now this particular model is called the Damasko DK22, and the physical dimensions of this watch, coming in at 39mm and a case height of 10, it has been an absolute delight on the wrist. That signed screw down crown at 5.6mm might seem small in its specs, but the knurling has been absolutely bang on. And even the weight on the supplied bracelet sized to my 18cm wrist, which I measure at 137 grams, because what I've got here in my wrist, it's not titanium, it's actually U-boat steel, or as we call it, submarine steel, and it is tough as nails. The comfort on the wrist has been great, the legibility has been a first glance offering, so easy to get a gauge on time, but what really surprised me about this watch is that it's got a 10mm case height, or 9.95 thereabouts, it's got a sapphire crystal exhibition case pack, and it's got an in-house movement. That's pretty good spec in anyone's language. Now looking through that sapphire exhibition case pack, you've got Damasko's A26-2 in-house caliber. It's a top grade automatic, features around 42 hours of power reserve, ceramic ball bearings in that rotor, and that gold plated Glycerdur balance wheel and enhanced temperature stability offers less deviation due to temperature differences. And this one here, being a top grade, is regulated to 6 positions. I think I get excited when I see watches like this or handle them myself, because honestly the finishing on this is just, I've got a lot of tool watches. This is refined tool, because I compare this to my Sin 856. This is not a Sin 856 versus Damasko DK22 review. It's not a comparison. I think this is a better watch, and I own the Sin, but at the end of the day, it's a different watch altogether. You've got to compare apples with apples. We've got an in-house movement, U-boat steel, extremely well-refined case and bracelet, and I've got to tell you that bracelet, I don't think I've handled a better bracelet in the area of its link design, not only because it offers fantastic articulation for a tool watch, which obviously is going to give you great comfort, but the fact that it's got hex screws, I think that far outweighs any other screw system I've seen. because putting the tool into the bracelet to remove those screws, there's no slip-ups, there's no stripping, there's no accidental scratching or damaging the screws, because once that hex screwdriver goes in, it stays in. And from what I've read from their literature, you don't even need Loctite on these. It's one of those bracelets which the screws will never get loosened up and accidentally come off. That in itself is impressive. Now, I've spoken about this clasp before, and although I like it and I had some gripes with it, this particular one is a lot smaller and more petite as compared to the one that I've reviewed with a 22mm bracelet. So functionality and overall ergonomics, it's been ideal. And obviously being a little bit more petite, it's been a lot more comfortable on the underside of the wrist, but I'm going to share a couple of things in my room for improvement section even with this particular bracelet. Now, turning my attention back to this doll, you notice there's a faux patina on the handset as well as those markers. It's basically covered with old radium GL-X1 Superluminova. Now, personally, I'm not a big fan of faux patina per se, but on some watches it works, on some it doesn't. On this particular one here, I really didn't get accustomed to it looking at the watch on the steel bracelet. I decided to swap it up for a different strap. I put an Artem strap on the actual watch, and I think, gee, you know what, I could probably live with this. So I think it all comes down to your personal choice of what your eyes see and my eyes see. And the fact that Damasko does have other dial options and variants, you probably pick your own dial layout that you'd like. Now, dimming down the lights, you can see that the lume application is decently applied. The handset is quite nice. It's clean, it's clear and legible. And I think for a watch of this sort of caliber and genre, it works, and it seems to work really well. Now, having lived with this watch for about a month, I know how good it feels, how it's behaved. I know the tech in it. I've read up on the documentation, the literature, the overall feedback that this watch has given me. You're probably thinking it's an expensive watch. Well, yes and no, because the watch comes in at around 3,190 Australian dollars on a leather strap. That's just over 2,000 USD. And although it might look pricey, I think the tech in this is more than justified. And I say this because my SIN 856 is not too far from that price, and I think this is a lot more watch. Now, all that said, no watch is perfect, and I do have some gripes with this particular one here. First and foremost, I want to speak about that clasp. I've really enjoyed this clasp on this watch. It's smaller than the previous one I reviewed. The previous Damasko had a 22mm bracelet without a taper, and the clasp was relatively big at the bottom of my wrist, and I shared that in that review that yes, I did not find that pleasurable. I think they could have done better. Now, this is a 20mm bracelet, again with no taper. The clasp is considerably smaller. The functionality has been great, but because there is no taper on that bracelet, you still got around 24mm in width on this clasp. It's not that bad, but they could have done better. I'd love to have this bracelet tapered from 20 to 18mm at the clasp, dare I say 16, and have a less wide clasp. That would be really nice. Maybe I'm asking too much. Don't have a problem with this one's functionality. The height is actually beautiful, but that physical width could be a little bit narrower. So putting it out there. Now, although the watch wears really well on my wrist, I've got an 18cm wrist, the lug-to-lug distance I measured at 47.5, the specs say about 48mm. Remember, those end links, they do extend further than that because they're male end links, so that will increase the effective lug-to-lug to around 52. However, bear in mind that the bracelet does drop straight down. It's very well designed, beautiful integration into that case. I think the finesse of this particular watch has to be felt and experienced to be appreciated. That's the best words I can do to describe this. And lastly, I want to speak about the sapphire crystal on this watch. The top sapphire has got AR coating on the top as well as the underside. It could become a potential smudge magnet, fingerprint magnet. I've got the same issue with my SIN 856. Overall, the watch has been great. I've really enjoyed this. It's a difficult watch to send back because I found it so easy to integrate into my lifestyle. And I want to thank Define Watches for actually allowing me to get hands-on with this. I think it's been a very solid, really well built watch with an exceptional level of refinement. Now, even though this particular watch doesn't have the silicone hairspring tech in it, it still does offer an in-house movement in top grade, which is regulated to 6 positions. And when it comes to watches that fall into that category, you can't but not easily bond with them and get a sense of, wow, this is really well made. And that's exactly what this is. It's really well made. So thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed my take on this Damasko DK22. Also, a little bit of an insight into the company and brand. I think it still is a very underrated brand, and a lot of mainstream people have not discovered this brand for what it really does offer in their watches, because as soon as people find out and get onto the bandwagon, then brands like this and their watches seem to go up in price, as we've seen historically with many other brands. So be well and safe. Continue to do your due diligence when sourcing a watch, your homework for a better word. so that when you do buy something, you're fully persuaded that it is for you, so you don't end up with any buyer's remorse. And that's one of the things that plagues most of us enthusiasts in this hobby as we ever grow and learn. Thanks for watching.